So, folks, following public debate on Jamaica's economic status, the Planning Institute of Jamaica has said the country is not in a recession. But what exactly defines a recession? And should we be concerned about where the economy is heading? Economist Keenan Faulkner joins us not for the first time to break it all down. Good morning, my friend. Welcome to Smile once again.
Morning, Neville. Morning, Simone.
So, let's start there. What constitutes a recession?
So, a technical recession would be 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline. So that's negative growth. But recessions differ in terms of their depth, their duration, and their diffusion, so the extent of the recession. They come in all shapes and sizes. Other metrics are usually used to sort of contextualize what a recession might be, apart from growth, and some of those include rising unemployment, rising interest rates, declines in investment, business spending goes down, consumer spending and retail sales go down, and you have an inverted yield curve. So those other things.
Hold on. So before we get to an inverted yield curve, you just mentioned a number of KPIs, right?
Yeah.
So if we're in an economic recession, let's look vis-a-vis what you just mentioned. What was the first one?
So rising unemployment.
We don't have that.
No, we don't have that.
We've had record employment.
Right.
What's the next one?
Rising inflation. Inflation has moderated.
Okay.
Interest rates.
Interest rates
are starting to come down,
although not being spread yet.
Right. Business sales and retail sales, some of them in the small business sector have expressed that there's some softness there. So that is a result of sort of the contraction that has been happening within other sectors which have a knock-on effect on specific sectors.
But we've had 2 quarters of negative recession, but that ended in December.
Right, that's correct.
So, were we in a recession then?
We were in a technical recession, yes.
A technical recession. As opposed to what other kind of recession there could be if it's not technical.
Recession in terms of the diffusion of it. So it is pervasive, it spreads to the rest of the economy, all major metrics.
We contained it.
We were able to contain it because this is not showing, this is a slight weakness in terms of economic activity based on what happened with Hurricane Beryl. So it affected.
Sorry to jump in again. So we've had 2 quarters of negative recession, which ended in December.
Right.
We won't know if we will have another decline until about June or so.
April, at the end of June.
Right. So why are we not in a recession then?
Well, because the economy has shown it is in full recovery mode. So it was 3.5 negative, then negative 1.8.
Yep.
This quarter of January to March is expected to be positive.
It's expected.
Right. Yeah.
Based on, what would the indicators for that be?
Based on the recovery in spending that has been happening since Beryl. Because just to use like COVID as an example, we had the first quarter going down, -2. Then the next quarter went down by -20. And then the quarters after that, we started recovery. And then the next 3 quarters were negative, and then we went into positive, and we recovered within 3 years. With Beryl, we're expected to get back to pre-crisis output in July to September of this year. So the economy is now, we were negative, we're in a hole. Then now we're starting to get out of the hole.
Was Beryl the catalyst for the recession?
For this one.
Because we had been recording successive periods of, what you call it now? What's the opposite of growth?
Growth.
Right.
Right.
So we had 12 consecutive quarters thereabout of growth and then another flat quarter. So it was decelerating, but it was still positive. When it fell into negative territory, that's when we now had these recessionary concerns.
All right, question now, because you're saying we should. What would cause us not to come out of it?
Well, if we had some other unexpected shock or consumer spending happens to still be soft. So, consumers have expressed that, spending is really soft and it's reflected in the business community. They have said that activity is down. But it is relative to the previous year, right? Getting out of the crisis, we might still be very small negative or small positive. But the trend is heading in one direction, and that is recovery.
And is this Jamaica or is this worldwide? Because I know we suffer from what happens outside of the world. I hear this recession talk so often that everybody have a different stance. Yes, it's happening. No, we're not going into one. So how, if we benchmark or if we look at the global outlook, What's that saying?
So economic activity had been slowing down because of the tight monetary environment. When the Bank of Jamaica rose interest rates to contain inflation, then business activity was depressed. People don't have an incentive to borrow money or to expand or to pursue business operations. So it started to decline, and there was a risk, like in major markets like the US, the Europe, Canada, that we have to interact with, would fall into a recession. In our case, economic activity was decelerating, but then it was compounded by Beryl. So Beryl just sort of
was the nail in the coffin.
Was the nail in the coffin.
I love what Sim said a while ago. I want to stick there for a second because I think we're bright, I mean, I think Jamaica people are bright. So why some people are saying, yeah, man, we're in a recession, and some others say, not go so. What is causing that?
Yeah, I think because, as I said earlier, recessions come in different shapes and sizes. So in some sectors, they will feel it. Other sectors are more resilient. So those that are not, exhibiting that sort of resilience might say, look, we are in a recession. People dispute what the technical definition of recession is because it is only technical. It just deals with economic output.
Yeah, but we can't be in a recession and not in a recession at the same time.
No.
No matter which way. Yeah,
one foot in.
Thank you. I mean, no matter which graft you're using to work this out, it can't be at the two of them at the same time.
Yeah, it's just, I think the context around it, circumstances differ. But one thing we know for sure is that the last 2 quarters of last year, the last 6 months, were both negative, and therefore we were in a technical recession, and that is beyond.
But it wasn't pervasive, and so that's why it's technical. And then what we have seen for January and February is that things are on the upswing.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying we ought not to be worried?
No, because the economy has shown a sort of resilience that was not present in the past. So to go back into the past, when you had the 1970s oil crisis, for example, it took us 14 years to recover. So if you're at 100, it took you 14 years just to get back to 100. Then now you had the global financial crisis. It took us 11 years to recover. Then COVID took us 3 years to recover. And now Beryl, we're supposed to recover within a year. So the economy has shown a certain sort of resilience now that we didn't have in the past. And that's because the macroeconomic fundamentals, we spoke about unemployment, we spoke about inflation, and those are untouched despite the recession. Reserves are still strong. We're still running a fiscal surplus. So all of those things contribute to us having the buffers to be able to recover quickly.
Shell shock. Interesting. How's business confidence now?
Well, business confidence had been up in the last quarter. It was the highest that it had been, I think, just before COVID, so in 5 years. Consumer confidence was also up, but slightly less than business confidence. So that is also another index.
See how these things work? So the last 2 quarters decline, but business confidence up.
Yeah. I think that reflects the stance of the Bank of Jamaica to now lower interest rates, because the trajectory for at least in the short horizon, is that interest rates will continue to go down. That frees up credit for spending. It frees up capital. We can spend more.
I have one more question. When are we going to start feeling the interest rates going down?
Well,
why the banks and such taking so long?
Well, because there are many different inefficiencies that sort of militate against trying to transmit what the Bank of Jamaica does in the real economy. And, that's between the banks and the businesses and so on. But in terms of a time, you won't see it for at least 6 to 9 months from the initial effect, and maybe 18 to 24 months for the full effect.
Why?
All right. Yeah.
Why?
It's just, they call it the inefficient monetary transmission mechanism, unfortunately.
Well explained. Former Arden Schools Challenge winner. Good to see you, sir.
It's so strange to see him here, as a big man, talking to us, big people. Come on, Keelan. When we from you was yeah. All right. I'm proud of you, though.
Yes,
good work.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Economist Keelan Faulkner here with us this morning. We have a heart-to-heart up next. No.
Your heart to my heart, back to your heart.
Well done, Keenan.
Well done, Keenan.